Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns.
All right, we got the unicorns.
It's a unicorn day. It's a unique opportunity for us to be able to find that it's a new day.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't know where I was going to go with that.
Hey, what's the name of the horse with the wings?
A Pegasus?
Yeah, see, there's a difference between a Pegasus
Yeah.
and a unicorn.
Right. Now, would they still consider a Pegasus a unicorn?
Well,
That would be the question. Because is Pegasus a character or is Pegasus a breed? Right? I mean, I know that many people would say the Pegasus and the unicorn do not exist. But I don't know. I haven't done much research on the Pegasus, even though I know about the Pegasus. Yeah.
so the Pegasus is associated with poetry.
Oh.
And in one tale, he was tamed by the goddess Athena. We know an Athena.
We do know Athena.
I didn't realize she was named after a goddess.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I never put that together.
Oh.
For those of Athena has actually listened to Cut Daisies.
She has.
To Cut Daisies and Unicorns. Now it's been a while. I might have to do a shout out to Athena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Athena. Yeah, she would always walk into a room and she's like, "Hey, cowbell." and then another. I think you know this. Very trivial fact, but I gave Athena flute lessons for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually in season 1. If you want to go back, I'm not sure if we labeled Steve Gives Flute Lessons and all of the connotations that can equate to.
Right. Yeah, you can put that together. All right, so it was the Pegasus was was the Greek or Roman mythology, or is it in both?
So Greek gods.
All right.
Greek gods and goddesses. So the goddess Athena tamed Pegasus and presented to the muses these 9 daughters of Zeus. And how do you say Mnemosyne? The goddess of memory. I can't remember how to say this. Represent the arts, including music and poetry. Okay.
I'm not sure which one.
Pegasus was represented as a good-hearted, gentle creature, somewhat naive, but always eager to help. For his service and loyalty, Zeus honored him with special immortality, turning Pegasus into a constellation on the last day of his life.
Huh. Yeah, apparently Pegasus was the child of Poseidon and Medusa. And they popped out a Pegasus? I don't know.
Yeah, just to be clear, there was only one Pegasus.
Right.
So that's a situation where you gotta that's a one difference between a unicorn and Pegasus.
Yeah. That's a really funny story, though. Pegasus sprang forth most miraculously from his pregnant mother's neck after Perseus had beheaded her. So Perseus cut off the head of Medusa, and out sprang forth Pegasus.
Wow.
Yeah. That's pretty fun.
So, and then not to be confused with, that Pegasus is also a spyware.
Oh.
So apparently the spyware is named after the godlikeness of Pegasus.
Oh, Pegasus spyware? Oh. There's a Pegasus Capital Advisors, too. So, Pegasus Airlines, which would go with the flying of the Pegasus, right? So, Pegasus is associated with poetry. And in one tale, he was tamed by the goddess Athena and presented to the Muses, these 9 daughters of Zeus. Oh, and that's that Minossian.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. That's where you pulled. Yeah, I don't even know. So, yeah, Medusas, and we got the, is not the same as the unicorns. Even though it looks very similar, if you would pull up a picture of Pegasus, you would think that you're looking at a unicorn. And maybe, well,
I don't know.
I think some of the Pegasus don't have the little horn thing. Pegasus doesn't have a
Pegasus does not have a horn, but Pegasus does have wings. A unicorn has a horn and has no wings. There's 2 of these things do not look like each other.
Okay.
I mean, the only thing they have in common is a horse's body.
But can a unicorn fly? Or is that not?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's another great question that the Googs probably knows.
Right. Let's see. Can unicorn fly? Let's find out. Can they fly? Sometimes called, let's see. Can unicorns fly? Traditionally, unicorns could not fly. They were magical creatures, but they were still bound by the laws of gravity as any other non-winged animal. All right. Thank you. That was from the unicornyard.com.
Yeah. If I wasn't on like an episode right now,
Yeah.
I would start watching the YouTube channel. Sometimes called "They Fly as Ordinary Birds Do" by using their wings to navigate the wind. Yeah, unicorns don't have wings. Dimrod. Yeah, but the magical.
It's so funny. The questions about unicorns, though, like, do unicorns have wings? And they're like, no, at least we don't think so. Like, what do you, like, they're like digging into. Well, the science tells it. Like, what science? Like, tell me the last time you saw a unicorn, except in your LSD-laced dreams. Oh, man. Like, yes, we don't think they do. Science is still, however, trying to discover. What happens if you discover a winged horse?
See, and now this breaks us down into, we're going back into foundational roots. Right? So we were talking about UFOs.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was episode 4.
Yeah.
And we made a distinction between alien and the paranormal. Right?
Right.
And so there was a distinction there. But what we didn't pick up then, I mean, hey, we can't catch everything all the time.
We can't.
I don't think anyone who's listening here would ever say, how come they don't catch everything? Actually, in the first season, people thought we were the people who would catch everything.
Wow.
You know, because they're like, hey, you know, what about, because when we were talking about time travel and, you know, just different things.
Right.
You know, what about Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're like human embodiment of the limitedness of humanity.
Which is the reason why we ended up having Fordyce on, because he was going to be the expert on.
He really helped us out.
All right. On the Who.
Yeah. So go to
Doctor Who, not the Who. Sorry.
Well, but we also call him he has called himself Doc Fordyce. That's the name of his business for making things that are things into different things that they could be.
Right.
Yeah. But one of the things that we've is the Well, we talked about mystery last episode, but mystical.
Right.
These are mystical,
Right.
mythical creatures.
Yes.
They have powers. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is where, if you have the, wasn't there a cartoon for kids based on the unicorns? And then what's that show called? I'm sure there's people who are yelling right now. Like, what's the magical horse unicorns?
Oh, yeah. It came up.
My Little Pony? No.
My Little Pony.
Are they unicorns, though? No,
Well,
are they
yes.
just ponies?
Yeah. Multiple characters in My Little Pony either feature wings or horns, yet all the horned unicorns in the show can fly, while not all flying horses. This is from 2019. Unicorn Rule, the website of unicorn lovers.
Wow. Who knew there was a thing?
Many people are considering these magical equines for the first time. Naturally, the mythical nature of the beast leads to many questions. The history. Pegasus developments. Many people confuse unicorns with another mythical horse from Greek era, the Pegasus.
Right. That's what I would say. We just cleared up for everybody if you've ever done that.
The emergence of flying unicorns. Aside from the occasional mistakes and mix-ups, it was very rare to find descriptions of flying unicorns.
Right.
This changed in the 1970s. Speaking of LSD, when fantasy artists started producing winged unicorns and horned Pegasus artwork. How would you know that you horned a Pegasus?
Well, and if Pegasus was,
aren't
like,
you
it's
putting
actual
wings?
Greek mythology? Like,
Right.
I mean, it's solely and squarely within the mythological realm.
There are carvings of Pegasus
Right.
in stone.
Mm-hmm.
In Athens.
Right.
So don't tell me it's like, in horned Pegasus artwork. No, if you have a horned Pegasus, you've got a unicorn with wings. Pegasus is one. Pegasus didn't have any babies.
Right.
Yeah. And if Pegasus, I don't even want to go there.
And then, if for all of our friends out there who like to play some games, there is something called the Unstable Unicorn. And apparently it's a card game, a strategic card game that will destroy your friendships, but in a good way.
Blowing it up with the friendship.
So I have no idea if this is in the same realm as, like, exploding kittens, and nope, I don't think so.
I'm not on Reddit. I don't read Reddit a lot. My son Micah is, and I would guess that other people in that age group.
Mm-hmm.
But from Ask Reddit, can unicorns fly? I love this response. Nope.
Right. Yeah, it's like definitive too. Like, that's what I was saying with the other one. It was like, can you? No, they cannot.
But and not just no, not emphatically. It's like nope, which means like you're asking this. Oh wait. You must be stupid for even asking this question. You're thinking of a Pegasus, not a Pegasus, of Pegasus, right? Because there's only one Pegasus.
Yeah.
It's not like you can be thinking of another Pegasus.
Right.
So you're thinking of Pegasus, or some stupid fake creature that looks like a horse but has a horn and can fly, but definitely not a unicorn.
Oh yeah, there's some blending of mythological creatures here, that's happening, and so we're here to clear things up. Apparently today we're clearing things up.
What was the term we came up for the UFOs?
The UAPs?
Yeah, but like when we're dealing with the stuff like that, yeah, gosh, now I'm at a loss for words. Because we're talking about paranormal
Yeah.
versus extraterrestrial.
Oh, okay.
Extraterrestrial, paranormal. Then there's mythological.
Yeah.
And we like to dabble in the mystery too. Yeah, this is great
Yeah.
intro.
I'm afraid
if you're wondering about it.
The cycle of the Google, when you get into unicorns, you get all kinds of like interesting things along the way. There's a group that's Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition. Apparently it's like a whole like esports division of like, I don't even know. Like, I don't want to continue to go into that loop, but as we also had mentioned, I think early on, a unicorn is also known in this like sexy realm of being a third partner in a love triangle.
Yes, I was just gonna bring that up because that actually has been brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we at some point in time, whether it was we brought it up on an episode.
We're gonna rename the episode "Dead Flowers in a Third Wheel." How do you like that, listeners? Mm-hmm. I can roll with the flow and I can flow with the best of them, but I ain't got no hustle. I ain't got no flow. Yo.
Hustle and flow. Hustle and flow.
Yeah. Hey, had some good feedback from the last episode. Somebody reached out to me and was like, "Hey, good job on the stoic and stillness part. If you're peeking in and you got past the ramblings of unicorns and Pegasus, not a Pegasus, you can have a herd of unicorns."
Yeah.
But you can't have a herd of Pegasus.
You cannot.
But as you're doing that, if you want to go back to episode 5 of season 6, or 6.
Yeah, I think we're on 6 today, right? Or did we? Yeah, I think we just 5 was last time. 6 is today.
All right.
I think.
Yeah. So, go back to the last episode, the one not included in today. Yeah, episode 5. No, episode 5 was last week. So, it's episode 6 today.
That's what I think we said, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was looking. I wasn't listening. Multitasking. I might like to spin plates, but I'm only spinning one plate at a time, noted. I am not multitasking. Yeah, I can do 8 things all at once. No, we've covered that in another episode.
Yeah, we did.
It's a continuation of an exhaustive list.
Oh, yeah. So, Steve brought into the studio today Steve-O's Super Smoothies. And
I did.
And, I mean, they're delectable. They are delectably delightful.
They're delightful. Yeah, and it's not from a delicatessen. Although the idea of a meat smoothie... But yeah, Phil and I were talking earlier. Does anyone out there see? And this is for our audience who has lived through the eras of the probably 50s, 60s, and 70s. Mm-hmm. Do you remember friendship bread? We talked about this.
We did, yeah. I do remember friendship bread.
See, it's been so long since friendship bread, at least in my circles, has been making its rounds that. But for those who are of a generation that don't remember a rotary phone, okay, or even a push-button phone that mounted to the wall that you needed to use that was corded, before cordless phones came out.
Right. Before it was mobile.
Yeah. Friendship bread would show up in a Ziploc baggie, and it would be in liquid form. I love it when we get to talk into the variations of chemistry. And so
bread in liquid form.
So you knew you had a real friend when someone gave you a bag of friendship bread in the real wet form.
Right.
And so in this baggie, there's this little glop of blop, blop, blop. Well, okay, so kombucha, apple cider vinegar, these are liquids that have a host.
They're alive.
Yes, and it's called the mother. And for those who produce kombucha on large amounts in large vats, I mean, these hosts can be monstrous. It's like an alien creature hanging out. And you feed the host with sugar and like all the different things that go to, so it's alive. Well, friendship bread was alive too.
Yes.
And so then it came with the instructions. And, hey, keep bag in refrigerator, because once it's disrupted, it's got to recollect itself. And so leave bag in the refrigerator. And apparently this bag was growing within itself because then you divided it off. And then from the division, then you would be able to take that and then make it. And the bread was very moist.
Moist, everybody moist.
It was moist.
So then you divided it off, and then you were supposed to give that back to somebody else, right?
I think that then you had a double division, because then you would want to keep, so you could keep on making this bread.
Yeah.
But then you'd get to pick out a friend, and this is the friendship.
That's where the friendship bread comes in.
Well, Steve's Super Smoothie is the gift that keeps on giving. And so anyway, when I have extra, I pour it into, we talked about, into one of these containers. It's like a lunch container from Costco. And so I really do. For every 4 days, I get 1 day free when I'm making doubles.
Yeah.
And doubles is 4 cups. So I think the blender is a 6-cup blender. So anyway. So then I'm like, after making it from the frozen part, I'm like, if I cube this up, I can be able to do this. So I ended up taking just 5 cubes and then throwing the concoction together, because I knew that as I was heading into cut daisies and unicorns, I thought, I'm not going to take time for lunch, and I want to stay on my regimen, because my regimen is working out for me.
Right.
So I was telling Chad, my I don't know if you want to call him a beautician, the dude who cuts my hair.
Sure.
I mean, he cuts ladies' hairs
barber.
Too. Yeah, he's not. I wouldn't call it a barber.
Salonist. I don't even know.
Stylist,
sure.
I mean, Caitlin's going to hate us both right now.
I know.
Yeah. Hey, where's the love, Caitlin? So anyway, I was talking to Chad, and he's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, you know what? I think I'm living my best life right now. And he's like, really? In what area? I said, all the areas.
Everything.
I mean, this is all inclusive.
It's all.
Now, for people who are just joining the conversation, literally I'm in my 3rd week. Technically, probably if I really want to get serious about it, I'm like right at 3 weeks, but it'll be 3 weeks on Friday. And yeah, so Steve's Super Smoothies are, and then we talked about heavy whipping cream and coffee, and I've got a regimen down, and I think I've figured out that I'm eliminating between 2,000 and 3,000 calories in the evening. And to Phil's point, when in doubt, fiber 1.
Fiber can be your friend.
And it can be your foe.
And it can be a foe.
So drink lots of water. Got to keep everything hydrated.
Yeah. And when it's a friend, like it's a good friend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But
keep things on the, keeps the system moving.
And I'm not freaking out about weight. That's not the point of this.
Right.
But I broke it down to Chad and said, hey, Chad, you know what? I think how I'm really digesting this is that I am wondering if I can live as a minimalist, at least in certain sectors of my life.
Yeah.
And by living as a minimalist, I'm willing to cut down all of the distractionary fringe of what's taking place within my living space, What about if my living space is me? See what I'm doing with that?
Yeah.
So if my living space is me, should I accept every message that's been taught to me or I've taught myself about my me living space? Now, I'm gonna take just a leap and I'm gonna come back. But if you wonder where earthen warehouse comes from, it actually speaks of ourselves as a vessel.
Mm-hmm. Right, clay vessel.
We have this treasure
Mm-hmm.
in earthen vessels.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the picture earthen warehouse is really developed about, because if there is a breath of life into
right
dirt, then we're a warehouse, not a storehouse. This is why a warehouse is where you put things, but things go out from.
Mm-hmm.
A storehouse is a compilation of a hoarder's life.
Yeah.
So I'm just dropping that right there. But can I live minimalistically
Mm-hmm.
within my own habitation of this body? That's how I'm breaking this down in my head.
All right.
And so, like, in theory, what I'm really saying is, what's the bare necessities needed? Not to survive, to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, food is fuel. You got to have the energy to do the things you're doing.
Certainly.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, apparently my body at this point needs about 8 hours of rest. If I go to bed at 10, I'm awake at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I want to be awake or not. Probably should push that to 11 and maybe sleep till 7. It at least in my head make me feel better.
There you go.
I mean, I don't want to be an early riser.
Yeah.
Like, and then that's where it comes in. Are you going to be a rebel for a rebel's sake, or are you going to be a rebel for a cause?
I think that's a movie.
You know, boom, differentiate.
Rebel without a cause. Is
It's
the
rebel
movie,
without
right?
a cause.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, brief digression in regards to that, but
you bring up minimalism,
I do.
which is an interesting concept theory.
Fad.
I mean, do you call it a fad?
Well, I would say, you know, like literally in the last, I would say 5 to 7 years, it's probably closer to a decade. I'm gonna all right, who's the most famous minimalist? Frank Stella, Eva Hess, Agnes Martin, Dan Flavin, Ann Truitt. I'm looking for the lady.
Marie Kondo.
See, you know her name.
Mm-hmm.
I should have just asked you.
Yeah, she was on Netflix, I think, is where I was introduced to her. Which is the reason why I was bringing up minimalism, because I think that there also might be a spectrum, right, for minimalists. You know, as far as there might be like a strict minimalist versus a not so strict minimalist. And that's the reason why I was like, when you bring it up, I mean, I always try to figure out, because I kind of like the concept of minimalism or minimalist living.
Mm-hmm.
But yet at the same time, I'm like, well, what does it mean? Like, do you cut everything out? Do you just look at and say, what's the minimum, you know, instead of what's the maximum? You know, like, what's the minimum that I need? I mean, and is that, you know, so do you just divide it and look at your whole life and say, like, what's the minimum that I need in every aspect? those are the questions. Like, I haven't done all of that work. I do remember Marie Kondo is like, if you have something, like, thank it for the time you had with it, and then let it go, right?
Yeah.
So there's that parting of the ways when you're like, even at your clothing, right? Like, you don't need as much clothing as you think you need, right? So, and I definitely I definitely need to, cut down. I mean, I have lots of clothes that I don't use that I also need to give away. Like, do that whole thing. Hey, shirt, pant. It's been great. You've served your purpose for me, and now it's time to set you free.
Well, and so, like, even when we're talking about, like, the changes of our body over the years, and, like, we've talked before, and looking back, I mean, I remember as a 12-year-old being able to, like, throw down 2 large pizzas and it not even affect me.
Right.
Now, like, I'm choosing, if I have pizza, instead of having 3 pieces or half a pizza, I'm like, all right, two's my limit. Like, so obviously, as you age, your metabolism slows down, and there's ways through food and nutrition to be able to get metabolisms to go. But the point is, as your body changes, then what are you going to do with those clothes?
Right.
And I think regifting or releasing for someone else's enjoyment is totally cool.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that pair shirt you're wearing,
Right.
Did you get that at a store? Did you get it online? Did you?
I think Heather got it at Kohl's.
See, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there may come a time when you're like, hey, the pair shirt doesn't serve me.
Right.
But there's a person like Nick who would love that pair shirt.
Right.
And I think when I was listening to an article, we're really rabbit trailing, but on NPR yesterday, and that HP is committed to zero blah blah footprint by 2040. But they are recycling like a major part of all of their ink cartridges.
Yeah.
And they're recycling it for the alloy, and they're recycling it for the plastic. Now, all of this recycling that's going on, there's a lot of, like, moving, like, once they get everything chipped down, then they send it to Canada for it to be infused with other plastics, and then it's sent over to China so that it can be manufactured into more thing. And I'm like, wow, it's a real bummer that you can't set up a campus, like, locally to be able to handle all of those things. But apparently we spend diesel, it's put on a train or put on a semi to be taken into another country, and then it's put on a boat, because I doubt they're flying it over there, but maybe they are. But obviously manufacturing costs in China are probably a lot less. Don't want to really say that out loud too loud, but if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. Right. So, but I do think that, whether it's your local, we have a consignment shop, thrift shop in Winnetka, that all of the proceeds go to mental health. It supports a local mental health counseling and things like that.
Yeah.
Goodwill. Goodwill's, but Goodwill's not the only thing. Like, and so when we start talking about community and what it means to be able to donate your gently used, mind you, if I could just impose my personal opinion, there are things that you don't donate. Don't donate your underwear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't donate your underwear.
And if you're trying to buy underwear from, like, don't do that either.
No.
You got to stop the cycle.
Yeah. And, like, socks, I would have a hard time. Usually socks, I'm not like, oh, I've got extra socks in my drawer, I'm going to donate them. I wear out socks, is the thing.
Yeah.
and you could be on both sides of the fence in regards to shoes. I would say that if shoes are worn out, don't donate. Like if you had a pair of shoes that you bought and you're like, oh, that never really fit my foot, and you wore them like twice, well, that's a perfect place. Now, minimalism.
Yeah.
I think when I approach minimalism, and quite frankly, I can't even spell this lady's name well enough to pull her up in Google. But I haven't watched any of her stuff. I have learned from my sensei Amy, and and quite frankly, there's a guy in my life, Matt, who when he and his wife Stacy were having children, and with grandparents who wanted to be involved, and toys would show up. Mm-hmm. He was like, "Yeah, I taught my child at the age of 2 or 3. If presents come in, toys have to go out." And so they began they taught the child at that young age that we don't get to keep it all. Mm. So you pick out.
Yeah, so a new one comes in.
Something has to go out.
Something goes out.
And then they picked either families that weren't as fortunate to have living grandparents.
Yeah.
Or then they donated to like thrift store and things like that. But that was the first time I'm like, you do what? Something comes in, something goes out.
Is that the same that they do with like, hey, you've got a brother or sister coming along? Well, who do we have to get rid of? Somebody's going away. Which one is it going to be?
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dangerous. That's dangerous.
Danger, Will Robinson. Mama's having twins.
Oh, no. Eliminate the family.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Hey, is there a space program? Space Program X. Are you looking for some people to go to Mars?
Uh-huh.
We
got
2.
a couple that need to be out.
Yeah. By the time they get back, we'll be gone.
Yeah. That's
so
just funny.
It is really funny. Yeah.
I just wonder if a kid thinks that way. Like,
I do.
Like, we got to eliminate grandparents, or we have to eliminate...
Johnny, there's some news. Oh, no, they're coming in. We have to... something has to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a good minimalist practice, is like, hey, and I honestly think that it would have been helpful for me as a kid to be able to do that, because I was always like, hey, let's keep, so there was a lot of that, like, we, keep this and keep this and keep this, and then everything kind of became a, like, let's just keep everything. I mean, and that's it wasn't a good spot, which is the reason why I still have the same issues with, like, some clothes in my closet that I don't use anymore. I don't wear. I have nothing to do with it, really, other than it's still hanging in my closet.
So,
so like, it would be helpful. Like, hey, you're getting a new outfit. Cool. Let's go and eliminate one.
Yeah. And I think, who takes the time to downright ask the question personally, and maybe you don't have the ability to.
Yeah.
That could literally be a struggle. I don't have the ability to eliminate. Mm-hmm. And going back to, in conversations, my first conversations with Amy when this came up, we were combining our households, and so we had 2 full, we had 2 separate homes coming together, and so I began the master shuffle, which was anything that I didn't know what to do with or how I was going to part with it. It all landed in the basement. And as that happened, basically it was just a first step is clear the main floor. What's going to stay, what's going to go, and all this other stuff. But at one point in time, she walked downstairs and she looked over into, it was a half of the basement section where potentially my studio was going to be, which ended up being my studio in its second variation. And and she looked around and she's like, "So what's going?" I'm like, "Nothing."
I'm keeping it all just in the basement.
And she's like, there's nothing, because I think every Thursday evening was, Friday was garbage day. And so by Thursday evening, it's like, what have you been working on to get exiting? Because then we'd bag and tag and get stuff gone. And I'm like, no. And she walked over and there was a chair that was broken. She's like, what about this chair? This chair's broken. You can't even get rid of that? And I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm just not ready. So what I'm asking for is, of all the things that have been purged from this place, can this just sit in the space until I'm ready to peel another layer off? And eventually I was able to do it and go through it. And so I think that this whole idea of saying goodbye, to possessions, that there was stuff that I had to be able to filter through, and layers upon layers to be able to filter through. But now I'm at a place where, good grief, I like my work uniform 3 years ago is totally different than what my work uniform is right now.
Yeah.
Well, when you gain 30 pounds and you had your shirts taken in because you were 30 pounds lighter, guess what? Those shirts aren't fitting. Yeah. So you got to get rid of the wardrobe that doesn't fit. This moves us into changing bodies.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to determine, is the change in my body something that is within my realm of influence, or is it due to, aging process and being able to settle into the new norm? And bodies changing is not, it's not a bad thing to be able to be like, hey, I'm okay with the change in my body.
Yeah.
What boiled down for me, mentally and physically, it just is some insight, me continuing to be transparent, is just that actually it was your words concerning self-control that really hit home at about the same time I was going through, and probably had been thinking through things for about 6 months to 9 months anyway. But just felt so uncomfortable in my own skin. And when those words, self-control, came up, then it was in the contemplation of me being able to come and hear, we've talked about it in the past, about how that in our mystery of belief system, we don't understand how some things work.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, the power of confession, I don't get how it works that when you say to another human being, this change needs to occur because something's not right in me, but I need to make this change.
Yeah.
But in the power of that confession, change is allowed to enter in, to occur. To me, that's mystery. Because I'm still as stubborn as I was the day before I made that confession. Yeah. And it wasn't with a little box and a drawstring curtain, everybody. This is in community. This is a casual conversation. It's an act of humility in words too, that I picked up the phone and I called Phil and said, hey, I need to make this change. And so I just put that out there. Is it are the things that you're facing from decisions that you're making where you're not willing to change? Yeah. Or is it from a natural progression of something you have no power or control over?
Right.
The aging process is the aging process.
Yeah, and you mentioned, decision making. It's funny, this minimalist article talks about our life, and the reason for kind of switching over to minimalism is they're saying, like, your decision making, you start off in the morning, right? And it's almost like they talk about it in the way of like your phone battery or your computer battery. Everything's starting out at 100%.
Oh,
you make a decision, and you're like, hey, I'm going to hit snooze on the alarm. You've made a decision, right? You get up out of bed. You've made a decision. You decide to make a coffee. You're making a decision, and then through the day, you're kind of burning through that based on all the decisions. So when they're talking about minimalism, they're trying to be able to say, what's the place you can get to be able to have to make less of those decisions. So you're not burning your energy on, I have 75 outfits that I can pick from today. So they're like starting off with, how do we remove decision fatigue and say we need to simplify our wardrobe? Now, they talk about Mark Zuckerberg, and they said, apparently, he's talked about it at least, or that he goes with duplicates of the same outfit.
Absolutely.
Right? So you get the same exact outfit in 10 different choices or 5 different choices. And you say,
Steve Jobs is the same thing.
Right. So then you are simplifying that decision. You already know what you're going to wear.
So go with me there into the dietary reform of minimalism.
Right.
And in that, there has to be a way, or is there a way, and this goes back to how I was thinking through, how do I deconstruct or take away the things that were learned growing up,
right? Family
Family of origin, these are the 3 meals. Maybe there's a treat, maybe there's a snack, there's bedtime snack. I raised my kids with a bed night snack, and so it was the bottle of or the sippy cup of milk, and whether it was some animal crackers or fruit snacks, or just what. But again, when you have a full belly, you can be fatigued. You got that blood going down for the stomach for digestion, falling asleep, all of that stuff. How do you take those thoughts, those trained responses to, oh, well, I woke up, so I eat breakfast. Oh, well, it's noon, so it must be time to eat lunch. Oh, what about dinner tonight? Oh, do I have something while I'm watching some TV?
Right.
And all of that. And I think part of, and I am going to bend this into the stillness conversation in our last episode.
Sure. I was thinking it had similar.
So then you start asking yourself, what is my body really asking for? And that's where in this part of the progress on this current trek, that I'm asking myself a question. Are you really hungry? Or are you nervous? Are you anxious? Why are you agitated? What's making you spin? Are you going through sugar withdrawal? Are you going through a pneumatic response to, I'm used to cracking a can and drinking a beer? Am I I'm used to having carbonation? And so just asking those questions. And so in that, and then boiling it down to, hey, wait, my work uniform was a pair of jeans and a long sleeve Dickies shirt. I had the Dickies shirt in gray, blue, and black. I had more black Dickies shirts than blue or gray. I usually wore black jeans. I did have a pair of blue jeans for the sake of. But head to Gap, I would buy 3 pair of black jeans, and when they started fading, they got rotated into the cutoff shorts, or things that I would just, because if I was going to be wearing jeans, I wanted to be wearing jeans that were dark black, that didn't look worn out, and stuff like that. And then then you get to pick out your shoes, whatever, socks don't matter. But yeah, boiled that down. Now I'm facing, I have these shirts, but I would have enough shirts to make it through a week and a half so that I could wear one, throw one into the laundry, and then when I got to the weekend, I wasn't short a shirt for the weekend. But what I'd be able to do is do my laundry over the weekend and then be refreshed. I'm a fan of having more underwear than you need.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Backup underwear.
Yep.
No. And I think that's where this, I mean, like, to me, like, it shouldn't be, like, mind-breaking, shattering, like, concept of minimalism, but, like, when I think back, though, when I'm thinking about the decision-making, when there's some of those mornings, like, that you spend more time on any of these one place, and then you get to a place at noon where you're like, I'm spent. And you're like, why? And then, looking back at this and thinking...
Decision fatigue.
Right, decision fatigue. Like, so routines then can be good.
Yeah.
Because you're spending less time thinking about, all right, what do I have to do today? How can I go? Like, what's the process for the... Like, all right, I have a routine. And you're creating routines right now. So it's the same thing when you think about, the bad routines, right? So the bad routine is like you pop a beer open every time you cook dinner. That's a routine, right? I mean, it was the same for me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Pop it, drink it while I'm cooking. That's just, and then you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and then it becomes a routine.
Right.
So is it healthy? Well, I mean, sometimes it's not always negative.
Right. Right.
But if you're doing it and then it's causing, like, all right, well, then I have less, to be able to, less willpower in order to be able to eat, or not eat or overeat.
Yeah.
Then it's reducing that. I mean, then there's, bad decision after bad decision.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think that those routines really, looking at it and trying to go back and saying, so where are the good routines? Where are the, questionable routines? Where is it that you can reduce? Where is it that you can go back and say, all right, so this one maybe not be that healthy. Let's try to figure out a better alternative.
Yeah.
And then to be able to start building those routines in.
Yeah.
So like you're teaching your stomach, I think, right now. Like these Steve-O super smoothies are the nutrients that you need in order to, be good, to be healthy, to be, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
And your body's like, okay, like.
And I'm working on multiple levels. One is cessation, meaning that I have a sense of feeling full.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, is that you can have, in decision making, you can have the distraction of being hungry.
Yeah.
And we could go on a tirade about hunger and people who aren't fed, and people not to any fault of their own, But then the other thing is that I'm power loading this with nutrients, and so the protein powder gets me, all, and then I've actually continued on with vitamin and other supplements that, again, I think I'm making enough changes that we really can't self-analyze like what each different part is making a difference in. But ultimately the bottom line is that any physical sense of my body just being upset with itself is gone, and I'm not feeling the lull post-eating. Doesn't make me dread eating anymore. And it's just the idea of trying to, I'm cool with leftovers, meaning that usually the food that is in the fridge that are leftovers, it tastes good. In the past, typically I've been I like variety. So then how do you do minimalism with variety? And that goes back to, I've talked about food prep. I really find that if I can food prep in one day the main proteins, what it does is it cuts down prep time during the rest of the week to be able to focus on, again, I've eliminated decision process.
Right.
And so in that fatigue, I didn't even realize, but then when you're like, oh my word, why am I so tired? And I will make this point as well. Alcohol does trigger serotonin in the brain, and that is a false sense of energy. And when I'm asking the question, it goes back to my conversation with my doctor when I first was diagnosed with high blood pressure. When he asked me why I was pushing caffeine so hard, and I'm like, I just can't get going. I need to be driving myself somehow, and stuff. And he's like, hey, dude, your body's in flight mode. It's holding on to everything it can because you're not willing to slow down. So one of the ways to take care of yourself is good rest. This comes back to our stillness motion in motion thing, and how in the quietness of taking time, in stillness, that means eliminating stimulation. See, now we're moving into a minimalism of what is. I'm not saying don't watch TV. I'm not saying don't enjoy, but maybe it's time that you pick up a book instead of watching TV. Maybe it's time that you work a mind puzzle instead of watching TV. Maybe it's time to take a walk instead of watching TV. And so the sedentary lifestyle, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. I have turned couch potato into a professional craft.
Yeah.
But and really, we have this conversation where we don't even know where all of our listeners are at.
Right.
This is no judgment on how you're living life. This is an expression of decisions of living life that I've made recently, and am just really starting to peel that onion away on how I'm, no pun intended, digesting these changes and how that occurs.
Yeah, and they have this other suggestion. I mean, ones that you've already even gone through with, like simplifying your meals and already doing that prep. But they also talk about, and this would speak towards the type A, was they say there's a rule of 3. So the night before, you say, what are 3 things I'm going to accomplish tomorrow, like to-do lists. Because we usually create a to-do list that's probably longer than anybody can actually tackle. And we're like, oh yeah, I'll just put it off to the next day. But it also leaves you with the sense of unaccomplishment, right? I haven't accomplished what I put down, right? So they say the rule of 3 says I'm going to put a priority list and I'm going to do 3.
Nice.
And so what are 3 things that I want to accomplish tomorrow? And I think that's a really good thing, because when I look at it, it's like I know what I want, and I have a concept in my head, but like this is what I want to do tomorrow. But most of the time, it's like I'm always then jumping into something else or tackling some, the thing that gets put in front of me. Like I'm doing that. Like if you have this priority list, you're gonna say, no, I've got this as my priority today.
Yeah.
Like, so something that gets put in front of you, that's not my emergency, that's your emergency.
Yeah.
I have a to-do list, and I've got 3 things.
Yeah.
This is what I'm tackling today, and it reduces that decision paralysis and decision, the thing that gets us all, beat up. So I kind of like that rule of 3 too, of, going through at the end of the day and saying, all right, what does tomorrow look like?
Right.
I got 3 things to accomplish.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And I think in breaking that down, because one of the things that I really enjoyed about my job at Gloria Day was implementing reproducible systems, or systems that you could redo, and so like in that, I would even say for you, you could go through and you could map out your week. And you can say, what are the large rocks that I know have to be accomplished?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the deadline where they have to be accomplished? All of a sudden, now, a week at a time, you have a reproducible items on the list.
Yeah.
And then what you can do, because if a person doesn't have or struggles with the ability to say no to someone else's emergency or somebody else's short time frame, you can be able to take a look at and you can say, maybe one of your things is, I will take and schedule for an interruption per day. You know, and say, hey, you know what? I really appreciate you coming to me with this. And what I'm going to tell you is my day today is full, but tomorrow I'll put that in the spot that I have available. Mm-hmm. You know, and again, that's a self-governance thing, because if you're not prepared for that response, your response every time will be, okay, let me get on that. Mm-hmm. Well, then what did you just do? You slid everything to the shelf that you were needing to do, meaning to do.
Right. And I think that's also a codependent thing too, is you're also saying, like, I'd rather make you happy than actually fulfill my, list that I already had in my head.
Yeah.
And it's a great response to create a boundary that says, hey, like, this is what I'm like, I'll do that tomorrow. And somebody might be like, oh, like, you can't do it. You're like, hey, like, this is what they're like. And then you always think, like, are they going to judge me because of my priority list? Are they going to be able to say, hey, like, right now you're not doing anything, you could be doing my emergency thing?
Yeah.
Nope. This is what I'm doing right now.
Right.
I've decided that this will be in my emergency spot tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
That's why I carry an analog calendar. Mm-hmm. And my buddy Nick, he'll even say, oh, that's something that was worth taking with me. Is an analog calendar lets you write it down. And then you can you can block that out and be able to do it. Quite frankly, the other thing that people should not be afraid of, because change can bring with it fear, the fear of change. And what people need to know is that the evolution of yourself is not something to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. Or let me put it in a way that might be more digestible to people of a certain group. Mm-hmm. The transformation of yourself is nothing to fear.
Right.
So being transformed into what you don't know doesn't mean that what you're being transformed into is something that you should let fear stand in the way.
Right.
And so with that, I just move into, quite frankly, one of the evolutions in our home is that this meal prep is self-serving. Meaning that if I'm going to accomplish the goals that I have set for myself in the studio, I can't be home at 4 p.m. every night for a home-cooked meal that takes, anytime you prep a full meal, it's going to take an hour to an hour and a half. I know that there's, hey, Steve, look at this YouTube channel. This lady shows you how you can make a great meal in 30 minutes. Well, you know what? Yeah, I'll put that on my transformational list next year.
Right.
But, I enjoy the process of cooking, and it usually takes me about an hour and 15 to an hour and a half, easily. Yeah. And I could totally take 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And so... But I'm not trading off. If I'm frugal in the way that I'm going to dice my own onions. I'm going to dice my own peppers. I'm going to go through that process. But what that does is that gives me 10 hours more a week. Technically 8 hours more a week because I have my domestic day. Mm-hmm. 8 hours more a week in the studio. Well, some people would say, well, that's 25% of a work week. Right? No. 8 times 5 is 40. That's like one full work day. It's like I'm giving myself back my domestic Tuesday in the studio.
Right.
But that's an evolution.
Right. And don't be afraid of it.
Right.
Because we're all going to change, whether or not we're going to change towards something we like or something that we dislike.
And it's not like I haven't cooked a meal, and because of someone else's emergency in Amy's life, she's had to work an extra 2 hours and the meal has sat. Mm-hmm. No offense. That's a part of the job. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, if I'm in the middle of tracking temp degrees on a kiln and it's going to take an extra hour, I don't have to feel bad that I don't have a meal there for my partner. I mean, and again, all of this intertwining, and so as I age, my question is, how can I take care of myself nutritionally and do it in a way where I'm not feeling hungry?
Right.
And is it sustainable? So not only I'm looking for cessation, which means that I feel full and don't get distracted with that, but is it a sustainable lifestyle? And what I found is the elimination of the clutter of things in my life has allowed for me in that I know it's time to clean the studio when I don't have any table space or bench space to do work on. I can't wait till you come and help me move the kiln because everything's full. Everything around it is totally cool. But I like the next 2 days I will be moving towards clearing out, oh my gosh, I got shit piled on shit. And I say shit purposefully because I haven't really been vulgar in this episode at all.
That's true.
And I want to maintain the level of integrity that I'm committed to. People are like,
oh, yeah. And then they close off this little section on minimalism talking about to reduce that decision fatigue is to just simply ask the question, what would be best for my brain right now?
Oh.
Like, so you go back to, like, brain health. And I know you talk about heart health, too. I mean, because of, with hypertension and whatever, that hypertension's not always based on your diet. It also can be genetic, right? So,
right, yeah.
But this one's saying, what about your brain health? So you're making a decision. So you're saying, as you mentioned before, should I take a walk right now outside, vitamin D, or should I watch Netflix? Should I eat this or should I eat this? So there's those decisions, and you're gonna say what's best for my brain health right now.
Well, and the thing is, dude, I mean, I didn't even realize what I was doing was eliminating decision fatigue in my life.
Right.
I didn't even know it.
Yeah, and you definitely are.
I mean, there's no question, because when I get up, I mean, and if I hadn't had my second coffee, I knew my whole schedule was weird today. So I started out with my heavy whipping cream coffee, and then you've gracefully and lovingly allowed me to have another cup here.
I had heavy whipping cream too. I should have,
Oh no, I've already had my one.
Did that.
Yeah. And when you're looking at like 90 calories for, I think it's 4 tablespoons. I dose one up that looks really good, and okay, so it's 400 calories, and they're like, oh my gosh, but that smoothie was, even if my smoothie is over 1,000 calories, I mean, literally, I'm not focused on my micro calorie count right now. I'm focused on how have I gained by eliminating the excess calories.
Yeah.
I'm letting my body settle in. When I plateau on my weight loss, then I'll move into micro calculations on my caloric intake.
Sure.
You got to get your horse in front of the cart and see the driving forces.
Yeah. And that's where you're even saying what's better for your brain health, right? It's not the calorie intake right now.
No, not at all.
What's better for you is be able to say, I'm asking about nutrients. I'm asking about what it is that's going to help us, make my hunger lessen, so I don't have to be focused on that eventually. All popping up throughout the day.
Yeah, and if you do the math, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So, I mean, if I'm sleeping 8 hours a day, I have 16 hours. And quite frankly, I move into another place. I have not had to deal with the thoughts of regret for over 3 weeks. And if people are like, that seems cryptic or coded, I'm just saying I haven't been hungover. I haven't been overstuffed where I'm like, oh, I've got to I got to sleep off my my food baby right now. And and just not caught up with that. And so, I think minimalism provides, when you're looking at your physical household, minimalism provides the space for clarity. And I've used this illustration before, and I'll repeat myself. When you read a book, there's a margin. There's a margin on the inside, around the top and the bottom, and the outside.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose for that is the human mind is able to go line by line better with margin in it. Mm-hmm. You need margin. You need margin in your life. You can't fill it up. Bookend, 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 bookend. Who in the world schedules, I've got a meeting at 10 o'clock. It's going to 11. Oh, I have a meeting that starts at 11 o'clock and it's going to 12. Oh, I have a 15-minute break to go to the bathroom and eat. And then I have a 12:30, to a 1:30, and then the 1:30. You got to have margin.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make the decision for margin.
Right.
And so in that space, you can't be working all the time. You can't be exercising all the time. You can't be eating all the time. You can't be vegging all the time. And so having the clarity in minimal living within a home, saying, I'm going to eliminate the things that aren't necessary.
Yeah.
That clarity that is for your mind and your body, I believe I'm onto something personally. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen this written. Doesn't mean nobody's written about it. I'm just saying a minimalist approach concerning food in my body. Mm-hmm. That if I dwell within me, what does it mean for me to be able to have a minimalistic approach for the care of what is holding me, for the purpose of what I want to accomplish with me. Mm-hmm. And if you want to put that on a postcard and send it to somebody you care about, that's as profound as I get today.
Yeah. And so there's the minimalist thing when it comes to like possessions and stuff.
Yeah.
Not food. But they usually ask like simple questions, like, so you're thinking about it's almost, it might be empty, so but they're like, so you're looking at, and this would be helpful for me because then I can go back to some kind of standard. So they're like, is it useful? Right? So I like, let's take for example this computer. Like I'm trying to figure out, should I reduce this? Is this something that I need? Well, is it useful? Yep, it is. Like I have my emails on here. I have my, there's a whole list of why, So I'd say yes. Is it the only one I have? Currently, this is the only one that I have. Does it bring me joy or love? Now, that would be a hard question. Like, I'm not saying that it brings me joy or love. But
it's necessary.
Right.
It's necessary, but
it's still useful, and it's still the only one that I have. And they're saying, so if you answer yes to any of the above questions, then you can say, I can keep it. Yeah. Like, it still has room in this life.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good set of questions to ask, because it may not even, like, you're going through something and you're saying, it's not really that useful. I might have one or two of them, or two or three of them. But, and so it's like, it's not useful. I have more than one, but it does bring me joy.
So what room is there for break-in? Mm-hmm. And I don't mean the stealing robbery type. But I actually have clothing that I have purchased, not for its value today, but for its value when it's broken in.
Oh.
Like a good pair of old jeans.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I was even thinking boots, because boots take a little while to break in, too.
That's what came to my mind, because I have a regret.
Yeah.
I bought a pair of black boots.
Yeah.
And I got them at a farm store, and they fit, but they're genuine leather, and it's taken time to break them in. What I need to do is wear them down to Lake Michigan and just go walking through the lake so I can get them wet and soppy so that it can form to my foot. And I think but there's another part of me that regrets that I just didn't buy a pair of black Doc Martens. I would love to get a hold of a pair of those blue ones like Caitlin has.
Yeah.
Except they were a special edition,
Right.
and it's super, super hard to find. But then I think to myself, I was an idiot. That's where I went with my frugalness, and I'm like, oh, well, these only cost $100. I mean, like,
Right.
you're talking to the dude who's on his last pair of work boots, like performance boots. Like, I spent $400 on a pair of boots. Now, they lasted me 7 or 8 years, so I don't have a problem with that.
Right. And you got them resold, and I mean,
Like, multiple times,
right.
resold 2 or 3 times, rehealed 5 to 7 times. Yeah. And so, but that's how you know you've found a good pair of boots, is that you can do that to them.
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh. Now, the thing about docks is you can't resole docks.
Right.
But in my head, I know that, I mean, because I had a pair of docks for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but break-in time.
Yeah.
You know, so like shirts are that way. I've got some denim shirts that now are just broke in, and I've probably had them at least for 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so that, you know, based on that minimalist question, then you really could say, like, right now, you can see the joy in the later, you know, in the latter years.
Yeah.
Like, once it's actually there, then I'm going to find joy and I'm going to find love. Right now, I mean, like, breaking in docks or, you know, like, it can be painful. So you're like, this I don't love, and this does not bring me joy.
Nope.
You know, when you're actually breaking those in, because I've had at least one pair of docks, but
yeah,
it takes a while, and then you're like, you get blisters, and you're like, this doesn't feel good.
My favorite pair of deck or boat shoes, was a pair of Bournes. All of my back in the day, 80s, when you know, Sperry's were the thing.
Oh yeah.
That's how I broke them in. I'd take them down to at the time it was Lake Huron, and just walk through the beach and watch it down, and then I'd wear them for a day, and they'd fit like a glove on my feet.
Yeah. I mean, because then because leather shrinks a little, right?
Well, see, the thing is, you're stretching it out with the water.
Oh.
And then as it dries, it's forming around your foot, and so it gets your footprint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a helpful suggestion for all of the listeners out there.
People are like, you're an idiot. It makes your leather break down and wear out sooner. Well, I might be an idiot. I'm pretty sure I'm planning on that. You know, I'm an idiot. It's okay.
Sure, if you haven't caught on, we're both idiots.
We're trapped in our own humanity. Come on, get with the program. And if you don't think you're an idiot, we continue to send out good vibes on you becoming enlightened to your humanity.
Good vibrations.
All right, dude.
Isn't that a...
That's a Beach Boys tune.
Beach Boy. That's who I was thinking.
Good vibrations.
And that's all you can sing, because YouTube will flag it.
Brian Wilson, # in your state. We love you as you are.
All right, apparently the dogs are freaking out, so right now we can bid everybody adieu.
Adieu.
Yeah, hopefully you found, I found this conversation to be super helpful, because I just have been thinking about it too, and so.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
All right, # Wesley. 20, hold it, he was 22. Give him 20 years. Yeah, so 2042, 2043, Wesley, when you find this, I may not be around, but take this wisdom as sage and advice to live by.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Peace.
Take it easy, or any way you can.